Bit of a different video for you today. We're going on a scenic trip to Dorrigo, which is right smack bang in the middle of what Labor would have zoned the Great Koala National Park, but under the New South Wales Coalition, they have decided to rezone it as the Valley of Death. Hello, we're back with our good friend Mark in less optimistic circumstances than the first time that we're here. Is this what we're recording this time? It's like a worse forestry clearing than the first one you showed us.
This is multiple orders of magnitude more harm to koalas. It's absolute ecocide. It's turning one of the most beautiful and moist areas on the Australian continent into a desert with koalas going extinct so fast that it's inexcusable.
Well, let's check it out. I didn't even know they got that big.
These are some of the tallest flowering plants on Earth, quite literally. There are trees in these forests that exceed 60 metres. There are tallow woods nearby that have been measured to 80 metres.
And also, this is a forest that has been untouched since Brontosaurus times.
Look, many of the elements of these forests, particularly things like the hoop pine and the coachwood, they're from Gondwana. They're from the southern supercontinent when we were linked to Antarctica and South America when dinosaurs strode the planet. They're literally some of the most ancient forests on Earth. This is an Antarctic beach, and this is, as far as I can tell, this is, if not the only one, then one of the only ones in this entire landscape. And they literally covered big swathes of Gondwana, so South America, Antarctica and Australia, to the extent that there are extensive fossil deposits in Antarctica today where those few areas that are ice and snow free peel open the rocks and you find this guy. And its relatives are in Papua New Guinea and in the temperate rainforests in Tasmania and Victoria, and then there are relatives in the Andes. So this is the sad carcass, skeleton of this poor old giant blue gum. And I think there's actually, interestingly, they've had a little bit of a go in spots at it. And there's a segment taken out of it down there. But it's not a small tree, you might say, sir. From what we understand, this is the subject of the current prosecution for the felling of these giant trees. So in this case, the diameter at 30 centimetres above the ground, any trees over 140 centimetres, 1.4 metres at 30 centimetres above the ground by law need to be protected as giant trees. So this is just willful, flagrant, unlawful conduct. Breach of the few laws that the Forestry Corporation operates under. And you can see the tape measure from the investigation. You can see where damage has been done.
It's like a little cheap police crime scene.
It is, and we can probably find. Here it is. Just,
oh my God! Look at that.
Yeah. EPA 73.
They've got it.
Yeah.
Look at that. It's a little forensics team.
Yeah. And look, here's some of the really clear damage. So these guys, these buffheads from Grafton, came up and they backed their giant machine into this. So that is letting in fungi. If fire comes, fire will burn into that. You know, these eucalypts, their bark is their skin, is their protection. And
all right, so this is kind of like getting an open flesh wound and not going to hospital.
Swimming in the Ganges after that kind of flesh wound.
Oh, well, that's a very smart idea, and I highly recommend everyone at home do that.
You can see the destruction writ large, fucking all around us. This one was taken out. These are big trees. This was a tallowood. I think it's getting older, but you know, the koalas love this shit. This is the size that the koalas need, the big trees. So it's not just the impact, the harm, the damage, the destruction of the giant trees, but that these trees that they are taking out as part of the logging operation are most important to our poor old koalas. And what the State Government Conservation Agency has told us in no uncertain terms is that these very forests are the most important to our koalas. The science is irrefutable on that.
And you know what's really sad? You can tell, like, even though we've had particularly wet years, you can already see the soil turning into desert. Already it's becoming compact. It looks sick.
It is sick. These were previously vital, healthy, spongy, thriving, living places.
Yeah, now it's just clay.
It's desertification.
Yeah.
You know, they buggered this up.
It looks it as well. That looks like desert. It looks like desert in the wet season.
There's also something really ominous about being in a rainforest and getting a echo.
Yeah,
There's
not a deadening of sound, a dampening from the multiple layers of vegetation.
And also, how perfect's this? Right next to this felled 200-year-old tree.
What have we got there?
Queensland's finest. Is it?
As you do.
I mean, Carlton, I think's Melbourne, but this point stands.
And we'll shortly arrive at a scene that is just gobsmackingly disturbing, and it's literally just in front of us here. This area was once a massive koala stronghold. It's all part of the regional water supply. And welcome, my friends, to the Valley of Death. You can actually see where they've dozed down and it's all eroded and water supply catchment.
Yeah, so the parts that they're keeping are the parts that are all burned to a crisp, and then they're just taking everything that isn't.
This patch over here was literally old growth. They're bulldozed old growth trees just across here, and I can take you to some of the stumps and the chunks of big old growth trees that are just sitting there dead on the ground. And they're like, so they're standing here, the head logger was like, it's all plantation, mate.
This stuff here,
Yeah.
he claims is plantation.
Well, we were pointing at it, so Dylan Pugh and I were pointing at it saying, but it's a diverse forest, mixed age stand, that's not plantation. And they were just adamantly maintaining that they're doing nothing but logging plantation. And we can go for a walk down here and I'll show you the evidence right there. So just that white stuff, there's actually hollows. So that's like centuries old eucalypts that have been logged and just dumped off the edge there with hollows. Hollows take, in the case of these coastal blackbutts, 130 or more years to form these hollows. And there's a whole lot of evidence just in that pile there. And then going up on that side, there's literally, trees from me to you, like huge old giants bulldozed into those piles up there. And you can see the remaining trees in the landscape. They're big, old, centuries old trees. So this is a massive crime. This is a huge crime scene.
Really looks it as well. I don't think I've ever been to a forest clearing zone, but it does just feel like a massive biological murder scene, doesn't it?
It's ecocide, like
straight up ecocide.
Yeah, like this is textbook ecocide. And I mean, I obviously took you to an area that was comparatively intact and beautiful when we went to poor old Wedding Bells. And that's a very special area, but this is just like next level. This is multiple orders of magnitude greater destruction than anything we've recently borne witness to.
And you know what else is incredible? I don't think I've ever seen footage that looks like this unless they're showing lands in Borneo.
You got it. And my partner is often saying you need to show the world stuff that looks like Tasmania or Borneo. It's like, well, holy heck, we've actually got it now in our backyard.
Yeah.
And it's happened this calendar year. This has all been done in 2022.
God, that is really strange, because I remember growing up as a kid watching TV, and then those Greenpeace or I don't know, some WSPA ad or something like that would come on.
Yeah.
And they'd show this.
Yeah,
and this was in a third world country, and that was 30 years ago.
Yeah. And here, under the this is the National Party driving the Liberal Party to dissolve our life support systems and destroy our water security and turn an entire landscape into a desert. This is what is happening here.
It's devastating. It is.
I've got to say, I really hate the Liberals so much more than the Nationals, because it's just so weak to sit there and be like, well, I like being the member of Warringah or whatever the fuck it is. It's just like, dude,
James,
it's like...
James Griffin, the member for Manly, is the Environment Minister. He has statutory responsibility for stopping this shit. And what's he doing? Oh, it's all lawful. It's all lawful. I've got it in writing.
Jesus, look, I thought that was a made-up thing in Fern Gully, that movable claw machine that you get the little small Twixers out of.
It's called a harvester, so it's got these hydraulic grabbers, and then this thing swings across and goes zzz. So...
Oh my god, that's so scary.
It's the chainsaw blade. Whatever you do, don't go near that when it's operating, gentlemen.
It's a torture machine.
Yeah, it's not a pretty hug.
You know what it reminds me of? Italian fairy floss. Look at it. Remember that?
No, but
I don't think anyone
I
else
don't
will.
know what you're talking about, but like talk about dead, like fucking, it looks like Mad Max.
Yeah, look, I don't think that powder should be going into the air in a rainforest.
No.
Wholesale conversion of a koala hub, an area that the State Government Conservation Agency tells us is critically significant to the survival of our koalas, turned into an industrial factory farm for trees and all that dead stuff. That used to have a tinge of green. You know?
It's all
It's new.
white.
It's herbicided pretty much as far as the eye can see around us.
How you feeling, bud?
I was really enjoying the sights, and I could handle it all until I saw the grass that was skeleton.
Yeah, the skeleton grass.
The skeleton grass freaked me out.
Yeah.
And like up until then, I was kind of like expecting it all, but then to just put this layer of herbicides and pesticides over the top of the destruction. I mean, it's worse than salting the earth. It's, I suppose in the same way that creating some kind of like food additive is just worse than putting in sugar.
Yeah.
It's that.
These are multiple centuries old, probably coastal blackbutts that are literally giant trees, and then they've tried to cover it up with a little bit of trash to hide the evidence. Plantation Mine left butt cheek, Mr. Greensills.
It's a big one.
I think this one might even be slightly bigger. You know, it's just a sham, it's a fraud, it's a crime, and it's got to stop. So we've got Crucifer, Associate, Starane, Simonex, Pulse, and Liège. The last two are surfactants and penetrants. The first four are a toxic brew of herbicides. And look at what it does! So they've done it with a helicopter, and all the eucalypts remaining in the riparian areas, in the strips in the middle, are dead. And you look down this bank here, and you look here, and you look there, and the spray drift has actually gone into the koala habitat. You look here, and 90% of the remaining trees in the drainage lines are dead from the spray drift.
And spray drift is illegal, isn't it?
Well, yeah, they're supposed to apply, under the Pesticides Act, it's supposed to be applied in a fashion that doesn't drift. So low wind conditions, like killing remnant native vegetation and koala habitat on the other side of the road is a breach of the Pesticides Act.
So it's drifted.
It's pure fantasy though, isn't it? The idea that you can just spray pesticides in an area and then somehow magically wind and water is not going to hit that area ever, and it's just going to stay in the exact spot. I really, nothing scares me more. Nothing scares me more than this kind of air poison that you can just dump everywhere.
Well, particularly the simazine. You do a little bit of Googling on it in some pretty freely available journal articles, and you don't want simazine in your water supply, and 10 k's that way is the point that, or 12 k's that way is where the water supply is taken from these catchments. An interesting point I'd make as well is that this landscape is known. So the landscape that we're in the centre of, has the highest diversity of threatened frog species on the Australian continent.
Here.
Here. As in within a 5 or so kilometre, 10 kilometre square around us. We've got the stuttering frog, the giant barred frog, the sphagnum frog, the pouch frog, the New England tree frog, the green-thighed frog, and of any similar sized landscape on the Australian continent, that is the greatest diversity of threatened frog species. Most of those frog species are Gondwanan, as in they go back into the depths of time when the whole of Australia was a rainforest. And there's
So hundreds of millions of years old.
tens of millions.
Tens of millions of years old.
And
Still pretty impressive, I guess.
it's incredibly impressive.
So a lot of these land clearing areas aren't just happening in kind of unique habitat, but they're happening in the most unique parts of the unique habitat.
Correct.
Anyway, let's tour on with the tour of death.
Okay guys, here's our next koala extinction op. So 2 days ago or 3 days ago, Tanya Plibersek, the Federal Environment Minister, listed the Glossy Black cockatoo as nationally vulnerable. These are feed trees for them. I've been doing 4 months of surveys on the Dorrigo Plateau in the last 4 months in areas where in the 1990s I used to see tens to hundreds of birds. In 4 months I've seen 2 birds.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's really dire.
Where did they go?
Their strongholds were all burnt in Black Spring, so between September and December 2019, and millions of their hollow-bearing nesting trees collapsed, and it seems as though there are very few where these were the areas in New South Wales where the biggest numbers existed. This habitat into the Nimboida Gorges, and I've got data going back to 1996.
So they did?
They're gone. I hope they're hiding somewhere having a big party and breeding up. There's a big Glossy Black cockatoo orgy playing out. I really do.
I remember you saying that once these landscapes are changed, they're changed permanently. With the right surveillance, are you able to restore these ecosystems?
But
you have to do it for like 400 years. Is that the deal?
that's part of it. But if we desperately and urgently protect every bit of bush and start replanting and allowing the regrowth of these systems, yeah, they can have a future. But that's a total emergency action, and we're actually going in the reverse direction.
Yeah, okay.
But that can absolutely be accomplished. So I'm not here to tell porky pies, but if we look after every bit of rainforest, restore those areas of rainforest that might be degraded or fire affected or with weeds, and then start massively revegetating those parts of the landscape that did have rainforest on it, we can give these forests a future, and in so doing we can give ourselves a future, because it will deliver us water security when global heating is drying Australia out.
Do you have like a price tag of how much it would cost to start restoring it?
Look, to do one valley around here is about a windscreen wiper on one of these nuclear submarines. It's about priorities. Sorry for that weird mention.
It took me a minute to do the maths, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cheap.
So, these nuclear submarines, they're tens of billions, potentially into hundreds of billions. A few $100 million spent on the North Coast right now would solve all the problems. Over time, spending some tens of millions of dollars each year would make things better. And it would just get better and better over time.
Well, it's been enlightening. Thanks so much for your time, Mark. This is it's very, I do
Part 2.
very much appreciate the endless shitting on the National Party.
Oh, that's where it's at. What can you say? The thing that we need to do for everybody, so including that of the gnats themselves, for a future, is to get rid of the gnats.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great?
Yeah. They're doing a reasonable job at it themselves. It's pretty great to kind of watch, the anti-Midas touch of Barilaro and so on and so forth, and to watch the fact that Mel Pavey was stripped of her ministerial roles and relegated to the backbench, despite, by her own admission, being the longest-serving National Party elected representative on the continent. What does that say about her kind of governance and, her power base, her responsibilities? It says that she really doesn't have any. Yet here she is still exerting significant weight to destroy these globally significant places.
Yeah, okay, so she's still going with that for the legacy. All right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Hashtag Dead Rivers Pavey.
She loves it, doesn't she? She really likes fucking up water. That seems to be her specialty.
It really is. We've seen
Dams, the darling.
Yeah.
Anything she can.
We've seen that, and the evidence base to support that assertion is irrefutable. And here we are, some of the healthiest, cleanest, most abundant flowing rivers anywhere on the continent, and she's trying to turn them into a dead zone. Not on. Really not on.
All the destruction you just saw occurred in what would have been the Great Koala National Park had New South Wales Labor been elected last term. This would have been over 300,000 hectares of New South Wales's most biologically significant land permanently protected. New South Wales Labor has repeatedly committed to creating the Great Koala National Park. So please tell everyone you know that if New South Wales Labor isn't elected this term, koalas will go extinct in New South Wales, as these Gondwana land rainforests cannot afford another 4 years of being turned into logged, bushfire-prone, pesticide-riddled desert.